If you have a GM vehicle, what they have is a Jiffy Tite fitting on their transmission cooler lines. And you access that Jiffy Tite fitting by removing this little plastic cover off of the snap ring. And they have a tool, it's called a Jiffy Tite tool. They're about $35–40, and it's split in two, so you can go right over the line. And then what you do is you put it in there, insert it into the fitting, and you turn it about 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn. That expands that snap ring. Once you expand that snap ring, then you can pull that line right off the fitting. The only trouble I have with that is most of the engine compartments are very tight. And when you have a tight engine compartment, you can't get both hands down there, and you need one hand to operate this and turn it, and you need another hand to pull on that line while you're turning. So what I'll do in a case like that, if I've got a real tight compartment, is I'll use what's just an O-ring pick, a cork ring type or a corkscrew type O-ring pick, and what I'm going to do is get a hold of the edge of that snap ring, and I can just pull it right off just like so. And once I got it off, keep track of that snap ring because they don't sell them separately, and then you can go ahead and pull your line right apart. Now once I have that line off, to do the flush, I'm using a piece of 3/8 poly line. Now that 3/8 poly line is exactly the same diameter as what the snout of this transmission cooler line is. And if you look inside that fitting, there's an O-ring in there that this snout seals on. And what we're going to do is we'll take the poly line and we'll push that right in, and that'll seal on that O-ring. And that'll go to my drain pan. That's the fluid going to the drain pan from the cooler. And then on the other line, to be sure that I've got all of my bases covered, I'll use a piece of hose and just go over top of that little ramp right there, so that if I do have fluid coming out of this end, this hose also goes to the drain pan. So most vehicles, that top line is the cooler line going out of the cooler. So when we go back together, we've got to have that snap ring back in the fitting. Now that fitting has 3 slots in it. There's little slots in there for the snap ring to go. And what I do is I'll bridge one of those slots, and then I'll take that snap ring and I'll push it in, bridging that slot, and then just snap it back in. Once it's snapped in, there's actually 3 contact points where it engages that ramp. And then when we're all done with the flush, what we'll do is we'll push this back in. And it goes over top that ramp and it snaps in, and you give it a tug to test it. And at that point, you can seal it back up and refill your transmission, check your oil levels, and you're pretty well done. So that gives you some idea how that Jiffy Tite fitting works, how to get it apart, and you're going to see it on most of the GM vehicles. There's a few other types that they have, but most of them are going to be the Jiffy Tite. So that gives you some idea how they work.